We only need to dedicate 0.02% of our week to exercising in order to experience significant health benefits. Every little bit that you do counts and adds up. If you value your health, you will always find 20 minutes in the day for a quick workout. You can make time. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Always Active podcast, the show that empowers you to lead an active lifestyle. I'm your host Katie, and this week's episode is all about how to make time to exercise when you have a busy schedule. I'll be sharing some important mindset shifts to make if you feel like you have no time, as well as some practical tips, everything from planning to time management strategies to time-saving workout strategies, ways to squeeze in exercise, and more. Many people aren't meeting the physical activity guidelines, and one of the most common reasons for this is because people say that they have a lack of time. And when I polled the Always Active community on my Instagram, back when I first started this podcast, lack of time was the number one challenge that you all indicated was your number one challenge to working out. And I can totally relate to the feeling of almost always feeling busy. I often feel overwhelmed with my commitments, from being a full-time PhD student to hosting a podcast to staying on top of all my personal tasks and making time for downtime and my relationships. But despite all this, I almost always prioritize my workouts in my schedule because it's something that I truly value. And I'm sure you can also relate to feeling busy because honestly, we pretty much all are busy. Now, with that being said, I want to recognize that we all have very unique schedules and lifestyles, and my routine is going to look very different from yours. My time management struggles are different from yours, and as much as some other people covering this topic may argue that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, I would argue that we don't all have the same 24 hours because we all have different commitments, and I can only imagine that it would be more difficult for me to maintain my active lifestyle if I was a mother or if I was working multiple jobs. So in no way do I want to suggest that it's easy for everyone to find time to work out. But the whole point of this episode is to share some strategies that almost all of us can apply to be more active and experience the benefits of physical activity if time is a challenge for you. This episode will be helpful for you whether you're currently not active and want to start dedicating more time to physical activity, or if you're already active but want to learn more techniques to sneak in more exercise and be more efficient with your workouts. This episode is meant to empower you and to prove to you that you can be more active even with a busy schedule. So without further ado, let's get psyched to move. Today's Psych Spotlight is all about planning, and I want to start by highlighting an important concept that is found in the exercise psychology literature time and time again, and it's relevant for today's episode because today I'll be discussing strategies to help you make time for exercise. So the concept that I'd like to introduce is called the intention-behavior gap. And this explains how people often have intentions to want to work out, but then they often fail to follow through with these intentions and they don't end up exercising. And the research suggests that planning is an important strategy to bridge this gap from intentions to behaviors. There's lots of evidence to support that people who plan are more likely to actually follow through on their intentions and engage in exercise. Personally, I plan my workouts and I can totally vouch for this strategy. I find it to be extremely helpful. So there are two types of planning highlighted in the literature. The first one is action planning and the next one is coping planning. Action planning means creating a detailed plan that specifies where, when, and how you plan to exercise. So for example, let's say I'm creating an action plan for the week, and the type of workout that I want to do is a lower body strength workout. The location of this would be the gym, and the time for this would be Tuesday at 7 p.m. That would be my action plan. Now, coping planning comes into play because we're likely to face barriers along the way because life happens. I'm sure you can relate to the feeling of planning a workout and then something comes up and then you need to come up with an alternative strategy in order to fit your workout in within the day or maybe another day during that week. So coping planning involves predicting these potential barriers that might come up and then planning strategies in advance to overcome these barriers. So you're essentially just being proactive. So for example, a coping plan for the action plan that I mentioned before would be, if I run out of time to go to the gym, let's say I go overtime working that day, I'll do a home workout instead. And this is something that happens to me pretty often where I'll plan to go to the gym in the evening and then the day gets away from me, so I just end up doing a home workout. I'm still getting in that workout, it just wasn't exactly the workout that I had initially planned to do. So in order to help you practice the skill of creating action plans and coping plans, I've created a resource for you and it's listed in the show notes. If you follow through with this worksheet, it will help you to practice the skill, and eventually this will become a habit and it will help you to achieve your fitness goals. Now, before diving into the practical tips, there are a few key things that we need to discuss. The first one being just how beneficial exercise is and why you should be making time to prioritize it. And I want to share a quote with you that I learned in my very first lecture of my first year undergrad health and fitness course. And that quote is, "Those who have no time for bodily exercise will eventually find time for illness." This is attributed to Edward Stanley. And when I heard this, it had such a big impact on the way that I thought about exercise, and it really has stuck with me to this day. And I wanted to highlight it at the start of this episode because it speaks to that no time challenge that we experience, and it might resonate with you. Now, before you click out, because I know this is an extremely negative quote, and it's probably not what you wanted to hear, for some people, maybe it is motivating to them. But let's spin this because you know that I like to take a more positive approach. And let's think about the quote instead, saying, if you make time for exercise, you'll be healthier both now and in the future. The point of me sharing this is physical activity is so beneficial and it is a behavior that's worth us making the time for it. If your excuse for not exercising is that you don't have time or that you're too busy with other things, remember that if you choose to make time for exercise, then this will help you to show up better in these other areas of your life. Because physical activity will make you feel better, it'll increase your mood, it will increase your energy, and ultimately help to make you a better person. Not to mention, if you're feeling busy and overwhelmed, exercise can act as a really beneficial outlet and an escape from your daily stressors. Related to this, lack of time and lack of energy usually go hand in hand when it comes to challenges to exercise, but something to think about here is that if we have a lack of energy and then we exercise, the exercise will actually help us to feel more energized in the long run. So just some things to think about. I'm not going to go into detail of the benefits today, but if you would like more information about the benefits of physical activity, be sure to listen to episode 5. If we understand the benefits of exercise, we'll be more inclined to actually want to prioritize it. So I really just wanted to reiterate this important point at the beginning of today's episode. Now, the next thing that I want to cover is how much exercise we actually need. You may think you don't have time because the amount of time you think you need to dedicate is more than you actually need to do. So I'll break that down a little bit. I did mention this briefly in episode 3, and if you would like a very deep dive into the guidelines, you can watch the video on my YouTube channel that talks about this. So if time is a challenge for us, let's talk about what the minimum amount of exercise we need to do is each week in order to experience health and fitness benefits. Now, the amount is different depending on whether you're interested in health or fitness benefits. So let's start with the recommendations for health benefits. This will be the bare minimum amount of physical activity that's required. In terms of cardio, the physical activity guidelines recommend that we should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity per week. So if we take these 150 minutes and spread it out each day, that averages out to just over 20 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each day. Now, if you want to be even more time efficient, you could do at least 75 minutes of high intensity aerobic activity per week. So again, thinking about that spread out over each day, that would average out to just over 10 minutes of high intensity physical activity per day, meaning that at a bare minimum, you would need to dedicate just 10 to 20 minutes per day to cardio activities in order to achieve the physical activity guidelines and experience health benefits, which, when you put it into perspective, really isn't that much. Now, in addition to the cardio recommendations, you should be doing strength activities involving all major muscle groups at least 2 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes. So at the bare minimum, just pick 2 days a week where you're going to spend 20 to 30 minutes doing full body strength training workouts. So if we take both of these things into consideration, the minimum recommendations for health benefits add up to 150 minutes of cardio plus 1 hour of strength training per week, which equals 210 minutes. Now, if we think about the fraction of time that this is taking in the span of a whole week, there are about 10,000 minutes in a week. 210 minutes of exercise equals to about just 0.02% of your whole week. So I really wanted to put things into perspective for you that the amount of time you need to dedicate is not very much at all in the grand scheme of things. And by doing this, you can achieve significant health benefits compared to not doing any exercise. So those were the guidelines for health benefits. If you're interested in experiencing fitness benefits, then you're going to need to put in a little bit more time. So the recommendations for cardio would be 3 to 5 days per week at a moderate to high intensity, with the length of each session being 20 to 60 minutes long. For the strength training recommendations for fitness benefits, it's recommended that you should do 2 to 3 days per week of strength training for each major muscle group, with an intensity being maximal effort, so close to failure, and the amount of time you should dedicate should be about 20 to 50 minutes per muscle group. So obviously, if you want to experience fitness benefits, you're going to need to dedicate a little bit more time and effort, but these recommendations are still doable for many people. The bottom line is you do not need to hit the gym 7 days per week. Every little bit that you do counts and adds up. And if you can't meet the guidelines for health or fitness benefits yet, just start somewhere and you can work up to that point. And of course, the more exercise you do, the better, to a certain point. But doing the bare minimum is a really great starting point if you currently are not doing any exercise. So I hope this helped to put things into perspective and help you to realize that it is very doable to achieve these physical activity guidelines. All right, so now we understand the importance of physical activity, and we understand that we only need to dedicate 0.02% of our week to exercising in order to experience significant health benefits. So here are a few more mindsets before I share the practical tips. We really need to get our minds right and shift our mindset first, because this lays the foundation for our behaviors. And if we don't have the right mindset, then the practical tips that I will share won't be very helpful. So the first thing we need to do is reframe exercise as being enjoyable. Find activities you like, because if you find something that you enjoy, you'll actually want to make time for it. And for some tips to find your favorite ways to exercise, be sure to listen to episode 3 if you haven't already. The next mindset shift we need to make is ditching the comparison to what an ideal routine looks like in our minds. We need to identify a realistic workout routine for our personal schedule. Like I've mentioned already, we have misconceptions about how much exercise we need to do, and a big part of this is probably just what we see in the media. Fitness is usually showcased as this intense, time-consuming, demanding thing, and then there's this discrepancy between what we can actually do and this idea of an ideal routine that we have. And if you'll remember, in last episode's Psych Spotlight, I talked about objective self-awareness theory that describes how if we perceive discrepancies between our actual and ideal self, then this can lead to negative self-evaluations. So I really want to encourage you to ditch this comparison. Stop comparing your routine to what an ideal routine looks like, because it's likely unrealistic for you to achieve, and it can be very demotivating and make you even feel like, what's the point if I can't do that ideal? But we don't need to do that much to achieve benefits. Like I said before, you don't need to be at the gym for several hours per day, 7 days a week. I personally don't want to do that. And you may actually see greater results from doing less but being consistent, because the most important thing is actually having a sustainable routine. Small actions add up to big results when we are consistent over time. Next, I'm going to share some tough love, which won't be helpful for everyone because some people genuinely have very minimal time to exercise. Whether you're a parent, a nurse, someone with multiple jobs, like I said before, I can't relate to that, and I do recognize that we don't all have the same 24 hours in a day. I'm going to include this tough love piece for the people who have time and are making excuses, so just skip if you don't want to hear this, but I know for a fact that some of you do need to hear this. First, you need to change your beliefs. If you're saying that you don't have time, in most cases, you can make time. So reframe your thinking that you do in fact have time to exercise. You need to stop making excuses because, like I mentioned, you only need to dedicate 0.02% of your week. There really is no excuse. And if you're saying that I'm too busy to work out or I don't have time, does that mean that only people who aren't busy are able to work out? No, everyone's busy. We're all busy. It just comes down to being disciplined and prioritizing exercise. And my final piece of tough love is that you need to rearrange your priorities and values. I found a quote on Reddit when I was doing some research for this episode, and it said, if you value your health, you will always find 20 minutes in the day for a quick workout. And I completely agree with that. If you have time to scroll on TikTok and watch TV for hours every day, you have time to exercise. All right, that was very out of character for me, but tough love Katie has now left the chat. She's gone, don't worry. Maybe she'll come back at some point in the future. But moving on to the practical tips, which I know you've been eagerly waiting for. So starting off with the most important tip, you need to plan your workouts because this is what is setting the foundation for you to actually make the time to exercise. Before planning, let's establish some realistic goals. Assess what your current schedule and commitments look like and ask yourself, how much time can you actually dedicate to exercising based on your current lifestyle? If you're just starting out, you can set a goal of a low amount of time that you're going to dedicate to exercise, and you can increase this over time. Now, today I'm not going to dive deep into goal setting specifically, but I will talk about that in a future episode. The main focus right now is that it's important to plan your workouts. It is crucial that you're including your workouts in your weekly schedule because, like I said during the Psych Spotlight, this is a research-backed gold standard strategy to bridge the intention behavior gap. So, my suggestion is to schedule your workouts at the beginning of each week. Pick a day of the week that works for you to do this. Personally, I like to do this on a Sunday or a Monday. And review your previous week and plan your upcoming week. I like to plan my workouts when I'm planning the rest of my schedule in terms of my work and personal commitments. When you're doing this, use whatever planning tools work for you. So whether it's a calendar, the reminders on your phone, or a to-do list. And a tip that I have is to color code your planning tools to make it more enjoyable. So for example, in my Google Calendar, all of my workouts are color-coded in different shades of purple depending on the type of workout that it is. The tool that I personally like to use is Google Calendar, and I like to use a strategy called time blocking. So this involves dividing my day into different blocks in which I'll do specific tasks, which includes my routines, my work, my social plans, appointments, and exercise. I have recurring time blocks in my calendar each week for my workouts, and these are blocked off times that I am planning to dedicate to exercise. And because they're recurring time blocks, I just had to create them once, and now they're in my calendar every single week. And then obviously, as the seasons change or my workout routine changes, I can just edit those recurring time blocks. And in this way, I plan to do my workouts at the same times each week, so that is my action planning strategy. When you're doing this weekly planning, be prepared to pivot if your week doesn't go to plan. Because, like I said, life happens and we may need to shift our workout plans as needed. Again, that idea of coping planning. So what I like to do is I move my time blocks around in my Google Calendar to fit my schedule to make sure that I'm still making time to exercise even if something comes up and I'm no longer able to do my workout as originally planned. Another strategy you might want to use here is integrating exercise into your routines, meaning your morning or your night routines, because these are kind of predictable times throughout your day. So if you're integrating exercise into it, it'll come as an automatic habit. It will take some trial and error to do this, and your schedule will likely evolve over time, and it will probably be different depending on the day of the week as well. Something else to consider here is you may want to adjust your sleep or your wake up times if, for example, you want to do an early morning workout before you begin your work for the day. And another thing is be sure to leverage your energy levels. So find the time of day that works for you based on your energy levels to work out. Next up, I'm going to be sharing some traditional time management techniques, specifically how we can use them in the context of exercise. So the first tip is to set boundaries. Make sure to protect the time that you've dedicated to exercise, and sometimes this does mean saying no to other opportunities. Obviously, use your discretion because there are some things where it's worth it to say no to exercise and go through with whatever opportunity. But you need to make sure that you're maintaining this commitment to yourself because that's going to contribute to your confidence and your motivation to exercise. And remember that if you prioritize exercise, it's going to help you show up in other areas of your life. The next tip is to set time limits. So establish the amount of time that you'll dedicate to each workout, and this prevents you from spending more time than needed on your workout, and it helps you to stay focused because you know that you need to finish by a certain time. So for example, this is a strategy that I've started implementing within the past year. I set a time limit for myself at the gym, and once I hit this time limit, I end my workout even if I didn't finish all of the exercises that I planned to do because this may be a little bit of a niche problem, but I enjoy working out so much that if I could stay there for hours, I would probably want to work out at the gym for hours. So I need to cut myself off at a certain point and say, that's it, you reach your limit, workout is over. The next tip, building off of setting time limits, is to limit your distractions during your workout, because this is going to help to make your workouts more efficient and it will help you to focus on what you need to get done. So some ways to limit distraction would be to put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Personally, when I'm at the gym, I pretty much just use my phone to set timers, change my music, and write down the different exercises and weights that I'm doing. And I'm pretty locked in when I'm at the gym, focused on my workout, so that way I can get in and out of there as fast as possible. Another distraction that you might want to limit is socializing. This is something that John brought up to me because he has a bunch of buddies at the gym. So he shared with me that when he goes to the gym, he needs to really make sure that he doesn't get too distracted socializing with all these different people because he has minimal time that he can dedicate to his workouts. So he wants to make sure that he's using that time as efficiently as possible and limiting distractions like talking to other people while he's there. Personally, I don't have this problem because I don't have friends at the gym and I don't like talking to other people. No, I'm joking. I have friends, just I like to focus on my workouts when I'm there. The next tip is to establish some workout routine rituals, meaning a step-by-step routine that you follow leading up to, during, and following your workout, because this makes your workout ritual an automatic habit and it's going to save you time. So for example, my little gym ritual is putting on my workout gear, packing my bag, driving to the gym, putting my stuff in my locker, filling my water bottle, warming up, working out, stretching. You get the idea. I have this logical sequence of events that I repeat every time, and I'm pretty much on autopilot when it's happening, and that's saving me time because I don't have to think of, okay, what's the next thing I'm doing? I'm just, boom, carrying through with my ritual. And a bonus tip here, you may want to use habit stacking to build your workout rituals. Habit stacking means pairing a new habit with a current habit, and the formula for this is after I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. An example of this would be after I close my laptop for working for the day, I will put on my workout gear. And you can continue to build those habits. So after I put on my workout gear, I will pack my gym bag. So you're taking that current habit that you're going to be doing regardless, closing your laptop for the day to finish work, and you're just adding on that new habit. And then this ends up creating a sequence of habits and it helps you to build a routine. The next time management strategy is called eating the frog. Now, if you haven't heard this before, it means tackling tasks in the order of their level of difficulty. So starting with harder tasks before doing easier tasks in order to build momentum and take advantage of your peak energy levels. This is something I do throughout the day when I'm focusing on my work, but we can also think about this in the context of exercise. It may mean getting your workout out of the way first thing in the morning because that's a challenging, demanding task, and then you can go on with the rest of your day after that. Or personally for me, I use this principle in the opposite direction. I like to get my hard schoolwork out of the way first, and then I reward myself with exercise in the evening. So depending on what you are finding to be a harder task, whether it's working out or your other life commitments, you can use this eat the frog approach accordingly. The next time management strategy is practicing pre-commitment, which means prepping ahead of time and limiting your options in the future, and that's going to save you time in the moment when you actually need to do the behavior, which is exercising. So for example, you can choose your workout ahead of time. Lately, I've been following along to workouts on Instagram since I'm not currently following a program. So if I am picking that workout and saving it on my phone ahead of time, this will save me time in the moment when I have to actually go to the gym. Another example of pre-commitment would be booking a class ahead of time. This could be done during your weekly planning session. And as a bonus, when you're booking classes, there is a fixed time commitment here. So it is also setting a time limit for you because you'll likely only be spending about an hour or so at that class. And another example of pre-commitment is laying out your workout gear ahead of time. I'm sure you've heard this strategy many times before, but that's because it works and it helps to set you up for success. Let's say you're planning to go to the gym first thing in the morning. You lay out your workout gear the night before, so that way when you wake up, you don't even have to think about the outfit that you're going to pick. You just put it on and get going with your day. This next set of tips is all about making your workouts themselves more efficient. So after you've taken the time to carve out the time in your week to do the workout, once you're there, let's make them as efficient as possible. Essentially, squeezing in an effective workout when you have limited time to do so. One way to do this is by applying the 80-20 rule. This rule states that 80% of results come from 20% of the causes. Meaning, a very small fraction of what we do is what's going to generate most of our results. By using this principle, it can help you to prioritize the things in your workout routine that are most important. So focusing on the 20% of things in your workout routine that are going to help generate 80% of the results that you want to achieve. And this is going to save you time by not focusing on things that won't make much of a difference. So with this in mind, what should we be prioritizing? I'll give some examples if we really needed to choose what's more important. The first thing would be compound exercises over isolation exercises, because compound exercises are going to work multiple muscle groups. So if you're short on time and you can only do a few exercises, focus on the compound exercises rather than the isolation exercises that are only targeting a couple muscles at a time. You might also want to prioritize high intensity interval training over longer cardio sessions. So these workouts are going to be more intense, but they're going to take up less time versus spending a long time doing a lower intensity cardio session. You may also want to prioritize simple over complex workouts. So really just sticking to the basics because that's what's going to serve you best in the long run, especially when you're short on time. And you may also want to prioritize full body workouts over doing a workout split where you're targeting different body parts on different days of the week. If you can only do a few workouts per week, it will be more efficient to just stick with a full body routine. The next time-saving strategy is to do home workouts. If leaving your house to work out isn't realistic, home workouts are going to be your best friend because they're going to save you travel time and they're way easier to squeeze into your schedule. And although many people might argue that this isn't true, in my opinion, you can have an effective workout at home. So if you're planning to do home workouts, I would recommend that you invest in a simple home gym setup. Think of the money that you spend on your home gym as replacing the money that you would be spending on paying for a gym membership if you're going to focus exclusively on home workouts. And you can start super basic with your equipment, purchasing minimal equipment or just sticking with body weight workouts. When I first started doing home workouts, I started with a couple dumbbells and a yoga mat, and I just upgraded my equipment with time. When doing home workouts, you can create your own workouts, or you can follow along to free YouTube videos, and that would be my recommendation. My current faves are Fit by Mick for full body strength workouts. I like Julia Rappel for mobility workouts, and Yoga with Bird for yoga routines. There are so many videos online for free that you can follow along to, so just try out different ones and find your favorite workout creators. I personally love doing home workouts a couple times a week on days when I'm short on time or I don't have energy to go to the gym. Again, limited time is not an excuse because you could literally follow along to a 10-minute body weight YouTube video workout, and right there you've got your workout in for the day. And I feel like pretty much all of us have 10 minutes in a day to squeeze out a quick home workout. Another time-saving strategy is to do mini workouts throughout the day. So if you can't dedicate a whole block of time to working out, instead, break up the exercises that you would be doing throughout the day whenever you have a couple minutes. So maybe you could squeeze in a 10-minute walk, or you could stretch for 5 minutes, or you could just do a couple body weight exercises without any equipment. All of this adds up and it all counts towards those physical activity goals. So don't think that just because it's a shorter workout that it's not going to count. It absolutely does. And your workouts do not have to occur all within the same hour of time. Another option that came to mind is there is a program that I'm aware of called MAPS 15. And this is a workout program where you spend only 15 minutes per day, every single day of the week. And if you do this, it is designed to help you get in an efficient strength training workout over the course of the week, only dedicating 15 minutes a day. So another thing to consider if you're looking into that mini workout approach. And then the final time-saving tip is just to do less time-consuming workouts. This is pretty self-explanatory, but avoid styles of training that are known to take up more time or have very long rest periods. So for example, maybe you want to avoid powerlifting because you have to wait several minutes between each set. It's by nature going to be more time-consuming, most likely. Or maybe you want to avoid marathon training because it's going to take a very long time to get in those runs. If time is an issue for you, avoid these time-consuming workouts and stick to more time-efficient workouts. So this next strategy is going to be all about doing multitasking workouts. So essentially doing multiple different activities at the same time, combining something that you need or you want to do with exercise. So I'm going to walk you through a couple different examples here, but you can be really creative with combining activities that you personally need to do with different types of exercise that you would find make sense in that combination. So the first example is taking walking meetings. So in this example, you're combining taking a meeting with walking. This could be either on the phone. I feel like that's become a pretty acceptable meeting strategy if you're working from home these days, or you could even take a walking meeting in real life with one of your colleagues if you're working in an office. Another example would be commuting plus walking, so active transportation. You need to commute regardless, so rather than driving or taking transit to your destination, you could consider walking or riding a bike. The next way that you could multitask is by working and walking at the same time, by purchasing a walking pad and a standing desk. I know this was super trendy last year. I'm not sure if people are still doing this. I'm sure people are, but I've been so interested in applying this myself. So I am going to look into buying a treadmill desk or doing the walking pad standing desk combination because I am sedentary, sitting, working at my computer all day. So if I could combine my work with getting some steps in, I think that is a great multitasking option. The next example is you can combine weighting with bodyweight exercises. There's lots of time throughout the day that is spent waiting for things, whether we're waiting for our food to heat up in the microwave, we're waiting for the water in the shower to warm up, or we're waiting at the bus stop for the bus to show up. During that time, think of little tiny ways that you can sprinkle in exercise, whether it's pacing around, maybe you're doing a couple bodyweight exercises. That is another example of a multitasking workout. The next one is combining watching TV with doing a workout or walking. So you don't need to eliminate these sedentary activities like watching TV or scrolling on your phone, but maybe consider swapping this sedentary time for active time so that way you can still get your workout in and you can still get your entertainment in, but you're doing them at the same time. The next example is to combine socializing with really any type of physical activity. You can make social plans around exercise. I like to do this all the time, and I have like-minded friends who also enjoy being active together. So the next time you're planning something with a friend to get together, think about how you can make it active. Maybe you're going for a hike. Maybe you're playing tennis together. Maybe you're going to a trampoline park. That's where I had my birthday this year. And yes, we were the only 20-somethings there and everyone else was a kid, but it was really fun. And it was a great way to spend time with my friends while also being active. The next example is to combine taking a work break with doing a mini workout. So like I mentioned before, we can sprinkle in those mini workouts throughout the day. And we need to take breaks from work anyway. So if you're taking a break regardless, you might as well make it active. These can be just short 5-minute breaks throughout the day, or you could take advantage of your longer lunch break because there's more time available here to do a slightly longer workout. Now, while doing research for this episode, I did see people commenting on other people's videos saying that they don't like the workout on your lunch break suggestion. And I agree, this is a little bit unrealistic to do a full-blown workout, but maybe you could just incorporate a short walk with your coworkers during this time, for example. And the last example I have is combining problem solving, which many of us have to do in our jobs, with a physical task. This has been coined productive meditation, which means focusing on a problem while performing a physical task in order to arrive at a solution. So what do I mean by this? During your work hours, identify a problem that you need to solve. And then while you're taking an active break, maybe it's going for a walk, you can start brainstorming solutions to this problem. And essentially, you're being productive while taking an energizing break from work. And personally, for me, many of my best ideas come to me while taking a break. So think about how you can apply this strategy in your own work. Those are all the examples I have, and I'm sure there are many other examples. And just think about other ways that you can incorporate multitasking workouts in your routine in order to sneak more physical activity into your day if you're short on time. The last strategy I'm going to touch on is making your day harder. And we can do this by increasing our NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. NEAT refers to the energy that we expend throughout the day other than sleeping, eating, or structured exercise, and it is a very big contributor to our overall energy expenditure. So there are many small ways that we can sneak in physical activity through the day, increasing our NEAT and essentially making our day harder. I know that making your day harder isn't necessarily accessible for everyone, and some of us would benefit from finding ways to make our day easier. So please take the suggestion with a grain of salt and apply it if you're able to and in a way that works for you. I've already touched on examples of those multitasking workouts, and in a way those are making our day harder too. And here are some other examples that aren't exactly multitasking, but they are ways to increase our NEAT. The first one is to take the stairs rather than the elevator or the escalator because this is more challenging. Another example is to park further away from the entrance of your destination because this is going to increase the distance that you need to take in order to get to your destination. I also mentioned active transportation before, but maybe if you absolutely need to drive or take transit to get to your destination because it's too far to walk or bike to, you could get off transit early, just a couple of stops, because that would mean that you need to walk a few extra blocks to get to your destination. Another example is combining household chores with wearing ankle or wrist weights. This is just increasing the intensity, making it a little bit harder, and making it more of a contribution to your overall activity for the day. And credit for this strategy to Trinity Tondelier from the Wellness Cafe. Ever since I heard it, I thought it was such a good idea. And then the final example I have is to take the longer way to get places. So rather than taking a direct path, consider choosing a longer route to get to your destination. These are really simple ways to challenge yourself to get in more activity if you're short on time. These will not be very time consuming. And again, this is just adding on a few extra minutes throughout the day to make your day harder, increase your energy expenditure, and get in more physical activity so that you are closer to achieving the physical activity guidelines. Next up, we've got today's movement mindset segment. And today's movement mindset is when in doubt, pivot. The reason this has been on my mind is because I actually decided to quit Natasha Ocean's Move program a few weeks into it. You might remember back in episode 6, I said that this new program was going to be the new goal that I was working toward, and I paid for this program. I was excited to try it, but a couple weeks in, which was more like a month and a half in because I was really dragging out the workouts, I started to dread going to the gym, and I just realized that this program doesn't align with my goals right now. And I also realized that if I continued along this path, I was going to experience burnout. I was having those feelings of impending burnout that I have had before, and I wanted to stop burnout right in its tracks. So I quit while I was ahead and decided that there's no point in continuing it if I don't enjoy it right now. I can always come back to this program at some point in the future when I'm feeling like this is more in alignment with my goals and my interests. So how can you apply this mindset? Recognize when something doesn't feel right, you're starting to feel unmotivated, or you're sensing burnout is about to occur, and then pivot to a different style of training or a different goal. You don't have to stick to a goal if you're realizing that it no longer aligns, and you can set different goals. It's okay to quit because this doesn't make you a failure. It just means that you're self-aware enough to realize that something's not working for you, and you're being proactive by preventing burnout, which can be very difficult to overcome. It's better to make this change early on rather than pushing through when you know it's not working. And I would encourage you to stay flexible and open to changing your goals and routines rather than having a rigid, unchangeable goal, because this is going to be more sustainable for you to have that long-term active lifestyle. And wrapping things up with our community responses, I asked you a bunch of questions related to time management and to what extent time is a challenge for you when it comes to working out. So the first question I asked was, how high does lack of time rank on your list of challenges that make it difficult for you to work out? And I gave a scale from not a challenge all the way to my biggest challenge. And the average response was around the 75% mark, so somewhere between somewhat of a challenge and my biggest challenge. And there was only one response at the very low end of the scale, with most responses being at the high end, which really reinforces what I found in that initial poll a couple months ago, that lack of time really is a big barrier for members of the Always Active community. Myself included, I would say that my lack of time is probably my biggest challenge when it comes to working out. The next question I asked is, do you schedule your workouts? So are you using that psychology-backed strategy that I shared? 50% of you said, yes, I always schedule them in advance. 30% of you said, yes, I sometimes schedule them in advance. And 20% of you said no because I work out at the same time each week. Then none of you said no, I prefer spontaneous workouts. So it seems like everyone is regularly scheduling their workouts, or they have a set schedule and they don't need to plan each week. So it's great that you're using this strategy, and clearly it works. The next question was, how would you rate your time management skills on a scale ranging from poor to excellent? The average response was just above the halfway mark, so about decent, and only one person saying excellent and one person saying poor. But overall, everyone else was somewhere between decent and excellent. Hopefully through this episode, you've learned some new time management skills to help you with your workout routine, and you're leaning more towards the excellent side of the scale after listening. Then my final questions were open response questions. I asked, what tips do you have for making time to work out? How do you stay consistent with your workouts with a busy schedule? And what do you do to work out when you're short on time? One of you said, even 15 minutes of movement adds up. And yes, I completely agree with this. You just need to do small amounts of activity each day, and over the course of a week, it will add up to help you to meet the physical activity guidelines and experience the benefits of exercise. Really just ditch that all or nothing mentality that you need to be doing these hour-long workouts every single day, and recognize that short workouts count and they do add up. And the next response was, you have to make time to work out. I agree. In many cases, it's just a matter of prioritizing your workouts and prioritizing exercise as something you value, because if you value it, you'll make time for it and make sure that it's included within your weekly schedule. After listening to this episode, I hope you feel empowered and like you can make time to work out, even if you have a busy schedule. I encourage you to start incorporating these tips, and with time, it'll become easier to manage your time and include physical activity into your busy schedule. Carving out time to exercise will eventually become an automatic habit. As always, if you have any questions about this episode or any feedback, please feel free to DM me on Instagram, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube channel. And if you have a moment, I would really appreciate if you could please leave a review on this podcast, because it helps to get the show out to more people, and it can help more people to overcome the challenge of lack of time when it comes to working out. So with that, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Always Active podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, and I would be grateful if you could please leave a review. Also, be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at all.ways.active so that your responses can be featured in future episodes. See you next time.